Okay, hello everyone. Dashi Miller. We're here with this week's episode of KUDEN Radio. So this episode brought to you by, anyway, it's actually based on a question that was sent in by a listener and a student who's been in and out of my programs, who wanted to know if I could cover some differences and whatnot between the Iga and Koga ninja. These are the two that get mentioned most often in history things and whatnot. So anyway, I'll do my best, knowing again that I wasn't there, but I'll do my best based on what I have, research I've done, information I received, those kind of things. But I don't know. We'll see if this actually matches not what people think they already know, but what people want to hear. Okay? All right, so we'll talk about that and more when we get started.
So, the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world.
All right, here we go. So, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN. I'm flying solo again. James is on vacation. He's actually on a cruise ship out in the ocean, which is where I will be in about a week. So not in the same ship, but anyway, my wife and I got each other a Christmas present. And so I know it's going to be a little bit late, but hey, going to the Eastern Caribbean, we like cruising. I know some of you don't like that kind of thing. Some of you, I don't know, I've heard everything from floating petri dish to whatever, but you know what? Such is life. So anyway, I had for those of you who missed the intro, had a question come in. I think it was after the last episode? No, it was a couple episodes ago, because we had the holiday episodes get in there this year and end of last year, right? 23, 24. Christmas and New Year's days actually fell on a KUDEN day. Well, KUDEN gets precedence. So anyway, so we did a couple of holiday episodes in between, but one of my guys, Jared, had sent in a message or sent in a kind of a topic request, which you guys are always free to do, right? By all means, ask away. So, but he wanted to know if I could cover something about the Iga and Koga ninja differences, those kind of things, right? And then in the process of getting this information out and promoting things, one of my other guys, one of my local guys, Chris, I call him the question man. He sent in a message, and my notes right here. He says, I'm curious, was it like you picked the ninja clan by what talent they had that you were in need of, like not going to a Chinese restaurant for Italian food type of thing? Anyway, I love how you guys formulate questions. Anyway, so here's the thing. you know it's going to be interesting when somebody starts off with that. So like once at band camp, no, we have lots of ideas flying around, especially if you go on the internet and you look at stuff. Some people are just regurgitating stuff they've read. Some people are mixing Naruto and other anime kind of things and that kind of lore with things. And some people are going by common modern Japanese perception of things. And that in and of itself comes from a bunch of strange things, right? Anyway, one of the books that I highly, highly, highly recommend is the book Ninja by Kasem Zogari. He's somebody I train with in Japan. He's a personal student of Isuku Sensei. If you have not read it, I highly recommend it. It'll be a disappointment to most because, well, doesn't give definitive answers. Well, welcome to the freaking world of ninjutsu. Okay, so ninjutsu is a strange bird, right? I have contended for decades that ninjutsu is not a real martial arts or real martial art. Some people, their ears perk up, they want to know more. Other people just kind of nod and do the right, right, the horse head nod kind of thing. And others want to fucking argue about it. Okay, I don't argue, right? Unless they've done the same research or more, in which case my ears will perk up and I'll pay attention. But just know that if you tell me something, I'm going to go look it up, right? And not just a general Google search, right? Because that shit's just retarded, especially when it comes to something like, again, here we go again, ninjutsu, right? Because what we're really looking at is something that is very, very different from what has been typically publicized. It's very different from what people want it to be. And it's very different from what everything from the media to supposed guru and whatnot have been professing it to be, including early ones in my training. Okay. Ninja being poor farmers and, rising up. I mean, it's like these modern militia, right? Taking on the most and best armed military that exists on the face of the planet, right? I mean, one needs to have their dreams, however, right? You've got movies, TV show. I mean, there was a time back in the 80s where if they needed a mysterious villain, right? Even in freaking soap operas, right? They wrote a ninja into the storyline, right? It's just ridiculous. I remember a time, one class I was in Japan. Some of you guys have already heard the story, so forgive me if this is a redundancy thing. But I was in one of Sameo Sensei's classes, and he laid some jute out on the tatami, right? For those of you who don't know what a jute is, right? Jutte. Okay. That thing that everybody calls a sword catcher. Anyway, he laid these things out. There were 3, maybe 4 of them, and it was a pop quiz, right? Because we were all upper level people, right? Which is the authentic one, right? So people are pointing and whatever, right? And it was the one that had no weld, right? And this throws off some of my students. I've one student who is a blacksmith, right? Just highly trained, works with metal all the time. And when I told him about this stuff, and I said, they didn't have that technology back in the day, right? They couldn't do a weld, right? So what they did was the traditional jite, it's a bar, but it has a taper to it, right? Not quite to a point, but it goes from a thick part where the handle is and then tapers down. And then the cross piece, right? If you've ever seen pictures where it looks like the cross piece goes past the bar, sometimes it looks like a flat hammered bar that's been bent at a right angle. Other times it's a bar that's been bent at a right angle, and then it's been fashioned into kind of a loop, right? And so the metal was heated and then bent around that way. And sometimes the flat bar, just a flat L, right, had a hole that was poked in it. At least that's what it looks like anyway, right? But in either case, the ring on the side piece, right, the quote unquote catcher part that people like so much, they love this. People love to gravitate toward terms, right? Why is that not trying to bring up my KUDEN overlay. There you go. Again, I'm flying solo. So anyway, but either case, the hole either in the flat right angle piece or another bar that was bent at a right angle that had the loop or the hole were smaller than the diameter of the base of the bar, right? The upright that most people are used to holding. And so this was hammered down onto it, so it literally wedged in place. Right? Yes, over time things loosen up, and you take it apart and either replace the right angle bar, because once you cook out all that carbon, right, it becomes brittle and you can't often refashion it and all that stuff, right? But there was no weld, right? And my modern blacksmith friends like to have this little argument that, I mean, it's a simple technique. I mean, all they had to do was X, Y, Z. Yeah, to you, right? They didn't know that, right? They knew that they'd done that kind of stuff, but they didn't know that, right? So they didn't have the technology. Which part of they didn't have the technology do you not understand, right? But a lot of people, they want to jump on things like the jite, right, or the sai, right? Man, that was a pretty cool weapon that they invented. Man, who thought of that? Farmer. Right? As far as the sai goes, right, it was a farming tool, just like the tonfa, just like the nunchaku, right? These were everyday farming items that were pressed into use. The jite wasn't designed as a weapon. Okay? Shuko, not designed as a weapon. Okay? The hand claws, ninja claws, climbing claws, whatever, right? All this bullshit that flies around. Anyway, so, but the jite was a sign of office. It was worn by certain bureaucrats that held certain positions in regional government, and it was in their sash, right? So wrapped handle, tasseled down, that kind of told what their office was, right? Well, how did it get turned into a weapon? I don't know. I wasn't there, right? There's stories all over the place, but it's just like anything else. I mean, if somebody broke into your house or tried to accost you in your car or whatever, you grab something that is not, nobody thinks of as a weapon or whatever, and you press it into use and it worked, and interesting, right? Now you got a story to tell. Well, back during the Sengoku Jidai Warring States period and times before that, right? I mean, you want to come up with things, right? You want to, somebody uses something as a weapon, ears perk up, everybody starts paying attention. Okay, so again, everybody gets caught up in the stuff, right? And I've heard everything from it's the highest level of bujutsu. Well, kind of, right? But there's a distinction, right? There's a sometimes technical, sometimes very clear distinction between bujutsu and what ninjutsu really is, right? And in Dr. Zagori's book, in Kasem's book, he makes a very, very clear point, right? That it's not bujutsu, right? It's kakuto jutsu, K-A-K-U-T-O, long O, or if you're using the Hepburn system, K-A-T-U-K-O-U. The U just tells you to hold the O longer, right? Kakuto means, it does mean fighting, but it can mean everything from just generally fighting. It can mean grappling. It can mean scuffling, tussling, that kind of thing, right? Which is like it's a hand-to-hand, up close and personal kind of thing, but it's going to be very contextual, right? It's going to be based on environment, attack, that kind of thing. But see, even that falls short, because needs to, and see, this is where people go off the deep end as well. Because as soon as I use a statement like this, or they've seen this anywhere else, then they just figure they can just make shit up and do whatever they want, right? But ninjutsu is more of a mindset. But somebody really needs to understand what the hell's behind the mindset. And it's not just like, well, my mindset is I'm a ninja, so therefore, right? and that, I mean, that's just as shitty as people who look at gaining jutsu, right? Low man ninjutsu, combat tactics, right? Guerrilla warfare, that kind of thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. Guerrilla warfare tactics, whatever, and then equating that to modern spec ops and things like that, right? Again, they're grabbing something because they need an easy answer. They need to be able to put it in a hole or put it in a box and make it easy to understand. And therein lies part of the problem. Because if ninjutsu were easy to understand, then any attackers or enemies or opponents or whatever, from naysayers in today's world all the way back to Oda Nobunaga and these people that were trying to wipe him out and stuff like that, would have succeeded very, very freaking easily, right? So it's just not that easy, right? I mean, if you read Kasem's book, and there's lots of other references out there. I mean, Don Rowley's written a couple of good articles. Sean Askew done a lot of historical research and things like that. Just there's a couple of really good folks out there that have done good work, right? They understand Japanese, they understand Japanese history and culture and things like that. So they understand some things that even modern Japanese don't understand, which is why modern Japanese have such a weird perspective on ninjutsu as well. Anyway, so you know what? Let me do this again. I'm flying solo. James is on vacation, so let me just kind of bring up the chat without making it show, because I don't need somebody hijacking the friggin' system like we had problems with early on. So let's just bring things up and see who's on. Who's on? Jared's on, right? Like I said, tonight's lesson brought to you by Jared, right? Sponsored by, he didn't pay for the advertising yet, but I'm sure he'll take care of that. Just kidding, Jared, relax. Dave Fletcher. Dave was on for the virtual Q&A class. He's in the Realm of the Tactical War course, and apparently it just got above zero. He says hello from Arctic Montana. Well, enjoy Montana. My daughter Trinity's on, and Jimmy's on. Kamawa. Let's see. Dave Fletcher says Mr. Zagari is amazing. Absolutely. Let's see. Jimmy says, I have a question for you. Has the Koga and Iga Ninja ever fought each other? Ooh. We'll get to that. Okay. That's a good question. Again, I think that question probably comes from a lot of stuff that's been written and, whatever. Okay? So I'm going to say, like in little skirmishes here or there, but again, it's not what people have been led to believe or have come to believe based on some writings out there, everything from Don Draeger stuff all the way forward, right? There's little hints at things along the way, but we have to understand that there is like one of these sides got way more press, right? Way more notoriety, partly because they survived. The other one actually died out. Two, when people talk about Iga and Koga, and actually, technically speaking, it's Koka. Okay, Koka. The problem with the modern translation or the modern pronunciation of Koga, right, is because of the characters used to write it, and modern Japanese say Koga for the one character, but classically it's Koka, right? So What do Westerners do? And see, here's how you know, well, reasonably sure that anybody that says that they were the only one that the hidden secret masters of the Koga ninja entrusted with their knowledge, right, to pass this stuff on, is that historically speaking, lineage speaking, nobody that holds the Koga ninja shit would be saying the word Koga. They'd be saying Koga, right? So, and there's all kinds of little bullshit things that went along. So who else is on? Chris is on. Chris, I already read off your part of your question. Brian's on. Good evening. SOG recovery. Chris, good evening. Awesome, guys. All right. So I'll check in as I can as we go through this. I just don't have James in the background looking at things. So anyway, all right. So again, here's my disclaimer, right? And I've heard me since they say this in class as well, right? I'm going to do the best I can to answer the question, which still may go unanswered at the end, because it's not as easy as was one group like this and was one group different, or how were they different, or whatever, right? It's not that easy, right? But my disclaimer is, I don't know for sure because I wasn't there. Okay, so what we're going to do, and that's why I said we're not doing like one versus the other. I know that was a title in an email that went out, but I only have so many characters to write things out without things getting lost. So I have to make things interesting enough so that people actually open the email. Right? And while I would like for people to open the email, the Ninja no Uge that I'm using, right, the manipulation, the influence, and whatnot, is not really about you opening the email, because I'm trying to manipulate you. I need to spark enough interest so that enough emails get opened so that collectively across the internet, right, and this is important to what we're going to be talking about, collectively across the internet, all of your email providers, all of your ISPs, internet service providers, email providers, and whatnot, right? Do what I want, which is to make sure that my emails end up in people's inboxes. Okay, if I truly didn't care how many open things up, right? And I know the people that are interested in certain things are going to open them up or whatever, but I have to make titles intriguing enough, because there is a threshold that if I fall below that on the opening percentage on emails based on how many I sent, there's something going on with the algorithm in the background, right? And this is not a conspiracy theory. This is well researched, because I'm all about making sure that my stuff gets out in front of people. There's something about the algorithm that will penalize me so that your internet service providers and your email providers won't even show it in your inbox. They'll toss it in your promotion folder, your social folder, your spam folder, or it just won't get delivered. Okay? So how about that? Now, think about all the spam that you do get, right? And how much you get compared to the stuff you want, right? And then recognize that the email providers, internet service providers, and all that, they know about all this spam stuff that's going on and all this crap. If that's the amount of stuff that breaks through, because all these people are being penalized, right? If it all breaks through, then how much is being sent? Anyway, so the reason this matters is not because I want to talk about email. The reason it matters is because this is directly related to ninjutsu and this frame of mind, right? This mindset, this way of thinking. Okay. So I'm going to be bouncing around a bunch of things here, and hopefully we'll come up with a picture. Okay. But let's do this. Right. I'm going to start with a fairly simple question and then back up from there. And it's actually the newest question that I saw from Jimmy. Right. So Jimmy had asked, had they ever fought? Right. Little skirmishes here or there. Right. And I don't have dates and all that kind of stuff memorized. You can look stuff up. But they're no different than like regionally during that era when two groups would have been pissed off at each other over something. Now, let's reframe the question. Did they ever find themselves on opposing sides fighting for somebody else? Right? Fighting each other. Yes. Let's change the question again. Did Koga Ninja ever fight Koga Ninja? And did Iga Ninja ever fight Iga Ninja? Yes. Did Koga Ninja ever fight with Iga Ninja? Did Iga Ninja ever fight with Koga Ninja? I'm going to default to the Koga thing just because everybody knows that, right? Instead of saying Koga the entire time, because I don't want to confuse anybody that jumps on late, right? So did Iga and Koga Ninja fight side by side? Yeah. Okay. See, not so cut and dry, right? So what the hell, right? And again, I'm going to be pecking at a bunch of these things because, and I've mentioned this before, right? Anything in ninjutsu, anything that is truly ninjutsu based is never what it looks like, because ninjutsu is based on deception and influence and secrecy and trickery and right. So it's not like, you know, there's going to be a shit ton of historical documents. And if there were, right, like Hattori Hanzo, right, just famous samurai from Iga, right? There's a special name for these displaced samurai, right? And a bunch of these people would go there. And actually, when I first got involved in the art, the history as I was taught it from the very, very beginning. And again, it wasn't that quote unquote ninja, right? They weren't known as ninja. Shinobi no Mono, a whole bunch of different names, right? It wasn't that things weren't used or employed or tactics like this weren't used before this period in time, but where things really started to get interesting was at the fall of the Tang Dynasty in China, because a bunch of influential, when I say high ranking, I mean like priests, generals, people from the imperial court and whatnot that were just, that, you know, you're gonna get fucking assassinated, right? So they fled China and went to this little island nation. Okay. Now what you have is a shit ton of immigrants running around that have skill sets that are not indigenous to Japan, right? Knowledge about, or even the possession of weapons, tools, strategy, all kinds of things, right? And I'm not going to go into a lot of this stuff, but you know, there were different schools in different areas, quote unquote ninja schools that were protected, right? Some were highly protected by Shinto temples and priests in certain areas. In other areas, it was, you know, priests and monks from the Buddhist order, right? But, you know, esoteric Buddhism came into Japan at that time. All kinds of interesting stuff, right? Taoism, what we come to know as the yin yang and the om yodo kind of things. All of that, there's this pool of knowledge that ends up in Japan, and we have these people that don't really fit in, and also they're really highly suspicious at this point of governmental affairs, because they were living high and large, and all of a sudden shit fell apart where they came from. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen again here, right? Because now we're on an island, right, that is a tiny percentage of the size of the country that I just came from, right? So I don't know how much anybody paid attention to the slide that I put out, right? Because when I create those things, I don't have anybody else create them for me. I do the artwork, and I always try to work symbolism and things like that into them, so I'm pointing at the premise. I'm pointing at something that's really, really important. Okay, and in this one, let me see if I can find my designs again here. Okay, in this one. There's something really, really important here. If you look just above my one ear and under the armpit or under the elbow of the ninja guy there, right? Because everybody recognizes that as a ninja, even though it's a kabuki theater outfit. What do you see? Right? You see Iga and Koga with arrows pointing at a green dot and a red dot. See how close they are together? That's all one region. That was a generally uninhabited region in ancient Japan. Okay? And way back, when these people moved into that area, it was very wild, very inhospitable. There was a reason that it was uninhabited. Okay? But it was all part of one region. It's all part of one or two mountain ranges that run through there. Okay? But there was, I can't remember, again, I don't try to memorize all these things. You can look it up. But there was a point when kind of this law got passed for dividing up this region. And the dividing line cut through that area, right? So Iga is now in the Mie region, and Koga is in the Shiba region. But originally, it was all the same freaking region, right? So when this line comes through, now we have this dividing line, right? But do we really? Right? So what does that tell you? It tells me before that, right, folks knew each other. But there's also this other thing that's problematic, and that is that people are looking at the Iga Ryu and the Koga Ryu as independent clans, and they weren't. Right? They were, if anything, leagues or associations, governing bodies, so to speak, right, over families, clans. Okay. And again, the numbers changed slightly here or there as time went on, but in the Koga region, right, it said that they had like 53 families under that umbrella, right, of the Kokoryu, right? And there were, what, 40 couple? My notes have everything from 43 to 48, 49, something like that, right? Families, right, in the Iga no Mono, right? Koko no Mono, Iga no Mono, right? So what they had, again, this was an area where what you had was basically like a league, right? You had a league of gentlemen, right? Not like the Sean Connery movie, but what you had was this association or governing body that governed the region, and then these families, right, were responsible for certain areas, for um, the protecting the collective, so to speak, right? And then you had this one family or one specific person, right? Like in the e194, right? Hanzo Hattori, 1 point, right? The Momochi family, um, uh, which is the family that Takamatsu Sensei, right, is descended from, right? So that's governing the Iga region, right? And believe it or not, there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of historical information about the Koga region because it was they personally I think they took secrecy way more seriously, but maybe they took it more seriously because of one of their focuses, right? But again, skills are skills, right? And again, I can only go based on what I've encountered in my research, and I take all of it with a grain of salt because we're talking about ninjutsu. Okay, everything in ninjutsu is based on deception. Every ninja weapon, if it's truly a ninja weapon, is designed to be deceptive. It's designed to somebody's head so they can't figure it out. So it can be used in ways that are unpredictable, right? Think Kyoketsu Shoge, right? That hook dagger with the long rope and the ring on it, right? Just generally translates to run around freely through the mountains and fields, give or take, right? What the hell does that mean, right? Well, it means it's highly adaptable and not easy to figure out, right? So, but either way, you have this thing, right? So you've got kind of a governing body, right? On the Koga side, you've got one over on the Iga side. It's handling a fairly wide area, but then you've got families that are out in different areas. You also had families and lineages, not even lineages. They weren't lineages. You had families, right? For something to be a lineage, it has to last, right? Generation after generation after generation. I mean, the Togakure school, which is an Iga no Mono, right? It was an Iga part of that league, right? Wasn't identified as a Yuha, right? As a lineage until the third generation, right? When the grandson formalized the lineage, right? Daisuke Nishina, the person that we know as the first generation, quote unquote, grandmaster, which is a bullshit term, right? Head of lineage, head of family, right? The guy that survived the battle, escapes off to the mountains, meets Kanedoshi, and learns all this shit and comes back and whatever, right? Comes down off the mountain with a different name, and he didn't name anything, right? He taught his son, they taught other people, right? But here's the question, right? Where the hell did this Kanedoshi get this stuff? Okay, just wandering around with like military strategy and spiritual stuff, and no, I don't know what his original name was, right? I just know Doshi means teacher. It's one of the words for teacher in Japanese. And Kane means bell, right? Expression of truth, which is generally a Mikyo kind of term. But this guy, he taught Daisuke Nishina, who became Daisuke Togakure, right? Named after the mountain that he was on, right? Taught him everything from meteorology to reading the weather, to just all kinds of like weird ass battle tactics and stuff, right? So where the hell did he get it, right? You just got this wandering monk that was just came out of the womb, right? With a whole bunch of like enlightened alien like stuff that was unlike anything that they'd been using in Japan for dozens of years, if not centuries, right? No, right? But anyway, so it didn't become a lineage until the grandson was like, well, this shit's still working. So hence the Togakude ryu. But instead of being like a lot of these Western jackwagons running around, they've got to invent their own lineage. Right? I was doing some research last week and bumped into, and you can find this stuff too, right? Bumped into a couple of articles and a couple of YouTube videos that people have created, right? How to create your own martial lineage. Well, shit. Buy a black belt, gold belt, purple belt, whatever, right? And make shit up. I had a guy way back in let's see, when did I start my first online training program? 2008, I think, 2007, something like that. And this guy was a student of mine. Well, wanted to become a student of mine. And then he eventually didn't because he was creating his own ninja lineage. Piecemeal. Right? I just smiled and waved. Oh, that's good. That's nice. Fantastic. Right? But he wanted to train with me because he wanted to add my stuff to his ninja lineage. Okay? So, buyer beware, right? Anyway, so what you had were these families that popped up just long enough to handle a battle. Because one of the aspects of ninjutsu is like a lot of religions, like a lot of philosophies or whatever, right? These things are born out of hardship, right? People are dealing with some really nasty shit, and people need something to hold on to, right? People need a philosophy or a moral or ethical base or whatever, and then these things kind of come about, right? Hatsumi Sensei talked about this, I don't know, at this point, a long time ago in my training, but he was talking about how, if you find a place that is, arid, desert-like and whatnot, sure enough, they're going to have a water god. They're going to have a religion that is focused around making it rain, right? All kinds of stuff, right? So anyway, but what you have with these governing legions, I guess, right? Leagues, I guess would be a better word. And so what they did was establish kind of a governance, okay? But it was a two-way street because, again, we're talking ancient Japan, whatever, right? That governance, because remember, this area was wild, it was crazy, it was uninhabitable, right? And these people freaking moved into it, right? But what it did, because at one point in history, right, they're close to the seat of government in Kyoto, and then at another point, right, because again, it grows, contracts, whatever, right? Then it moves to Edo, right, modern Tokyo, right? There's Kamakura. Kamakura is very close to Tokyo for those who don't know it. But it's close enough to keep an eye on things, to keep an ear out, right? Without trains, right? To travel, to get information and whatnot. But far enough off the beaten path that you're not going to have government intervention. Just like modern militia, right? They go freaking hiding out in the mountains and, off the beaten path, but it's close enough, they're always close enough to a main road that they can get someplace, they can get supplies, whatever. But the league, right, wasn't just responsible for the governance and what was going on within it, right? Because, if somebody committed a crime, right, well, then they could pass a ruling and have them executed, right? So there was this base of law, but the Uda side to it, the hidden side, was also to keep the government out, right? So I know it sounds kind of familiar, right? But they were still highly tied in, right? So one of the differences that I have, that I keep bumping into, was the Koga no Mono, the Koga families generally had allegiance to typically one family. Not that they didn't farm out and do things for other ones, but Rokasho, something like that, Rokasa family, look it up. So they were tied in heavily with them, but Tokugawa Ieyasu, right, the guy that comes along and unifies Japan. I've dug up things where he had very, very close ties with both the Iga and the Koga ninja. Used the Koga ninja for certain things, but after he took power, the Iga ninja, because he had this relationship with Hanzo Hattori of the Iga's Iga no Mono, they, I don't know, kind of leaned in that direction, right? Because of what they did for him. I mean, the Iga no Mono, those, I think there were two primary families. There might have been a third one that became the internal castle security, right? These guys did groundskeeping. That's how they were hidden, right? But they were really ninja. Okay, so if anybody got through the samurai guards and all that kind of stuff and got into the inner courtyards, well, then they were screwed, because the gardeners weren't gardeners. Well, they were gardeners, but right. So cool stuff. But that was also the downfall of the Iga no Mono, right? The Iga, we'll call it clan, just because everybody else does that, because their skills just fell out of disuse, right? The longer the enforced period of peace took, the less danger there was, the less of these rogue regional lords, minor lords, and stuff like that were trying to do shit and whatnot, right? And eventually, right, what they did was they worked themselves out of a job. Okay? At least historically that we know about, right? Because the coolest thing about ninja is you shouldn't know that you're dealing with one. Okay? They don't look like it, they don't sound like it, they don't act like it. And even if they do, there's more that you don't know about than you can actually see. Okay? So, what about Hatsumi Sensei? He brought ninjutsu out into the real world. Did he? Okay? Or did he just hint at certain things, but got everybody at a certain point to just do bujutsu? Right? It's just turned into a martial art just like everything else. We'll talk about Budo a lot, but let's steer everybody away from this whole ninjutsu thing. Right? Anyway, so the Iga school, or the Iga schools, the Iga families are known well, and there were a lot of these displaced samurai and whatnot in that region, that on both sides, that were rubbed the wrong way, because the Iga tend to align themselves with the imperial court, align themselves with the government, right? Tokugawa. But either way, right? I mean, if we're going to do any kind of division of things, you got to remember the Chinese fighting, the type of gung fu that came in and mixed with regional kind of things, weaponry, whatever, right? It's not the way things were publicized in like the 80s and 90s, where the Bujinkan comes out and we're doing Togakure school, and that's Iga side and whatnot. So our fighting method looks a certain way. So anybody that says that they're doing Koga, right, gives it a reason that it looks more jujitsu like, or looks more karate like, or whatever, because, well, see, they were different. Yeah, no, they fucking weren't, right? Not when it comes to this, right? So not a whole lot of differences there. One of the major differences that I saw was kind of a yin-yang kind of thing, right? And again, lots of crossover. But from what I found, the Iga schools, the Iga no Mono, right, was more of the, when I say passive, what I mean is it's more of the spying, information gathering, stealth, infiltration, that kind of stuff. And then the weapons that they would have had, or the tools they would have had, right, support that. Right? On the Koga side, what you had were more guerrilla tactics, hit and run. They used fire a lot. They were the ones that adopted firearms more, right? So here's a question, right? If that's true, and Togakure school is an Iga no Mono, then how the hell did firearms and fire and explosives and this guerrilla warfare stuff get into Togakure school? Because they all worked with each other. There would have been a sharing of information. And why would we not adopt that? Right? I mean, if we're going to be, because there's points in history where it was over in the Koga region, but they recruited some of their Iga friends, right, to come help out with this raid, or what we're going to do is we're going to, set fires, and Koga ninja would burn a whole damn forest down if that was going to scatter people and stop government troops or whoever the invading army or whatever was from coming in, right? The Iga side of things was more to like pass false information and sow dissent and not just confusion, but mistrust in their leaders and stuff like that among the enemy forces, right? Very different, right? What they both had in common was in using superstition, right? Because way back in the day, right, just huge superstition kind of thing. So they would, anything that was ever blamed on them for being like, superstitious or supernatural or whatever, they'd be like, yep, that was us. Okay. So one thing that happened a lot, and it claimed Oda Nobunaga, his son, Nobumasa, something like that, son or cousin, whatever, right? He's trying to show daddy that he had all of his shit together, right? So he goes and raids this frickin' region and ends up dying, right, of dysentery or something like that, right? Because again, any soldier will tell you that one of the worst things that you have on a battlefield is disease and shit like that happens because of shit and stuff like that. Okay. And so ends up, getting sick, dies, whatever, right? And the ninja are blamed and whatever, right? So, which is why Oda Nobunaga came back, with a shit ton of troops later and laid siege to the whole freaking area, right? But he needed, was it 50 or 500,000 men or whatever, because all the smaller forces that ever came in, they just kept getting bottlenecked in these areas because these freaking mountains. If you've ever been there, right? I've been to Togakure, Togakushi, dozen and a half times, give or take, right? Fucking mountains are almost vertical, right? It's horrendous. I mean, they've got cars and buses and stuff that traverse it now, but if you're in a bus, there is no looking at the edge or where the guardrail is, like we see in our roads. You look out the friggin' window of the bus or the train, right? You're looking straight down a sheer drop. I mean, it's beautiful, but at the same time, it's like if a wheel leaves the fucking roadway, we're toast, right? This is not going to go well, right? Anyway, so, but anyway, it's just, again, it's not so cut and dry, right? because again, when we think of guerrilla war tactics, I talked about the Koga schools, doing like they'll burn a whole freaking forest or whatever, right? But there was, again, I don't have all these battles and whatnot memorized. I'm not that kind of a historian, but there was one such incident where they were using guerrilla tactics against a castle, right? And it was actually an enemy or a family that turned on somebody else. Was it Ashikaga and the Roksha family little issue or whatever? And so instead of the Iga doing the infiltration and the kidnapping to get whoever they were taking, right, and the Koga burning the place down, it was actually reversed, right? The way it's written down in the stories, the Koga took care of the kidnapping, and they had their Iga friends. It was their job to burn the castle. You ever seen some of these castles? How the hell do you burn the castle without infiltrating it, right? So, but this goes back to this mindset, right? Because ninja are highly intelligent, eclectic problem solvers, right? And you don't do that by developing a style, a formulated official way of doing things, and then go about adapting to situations. How the hell do you do that, right? Which is why a lot of people have a problem, because in the Bujinkan, again, I'm a member of the Bujinkan, so I'm not knocking anything. People just need to understand the order of things, right? If we're working on Bujutsu, okay, then learn that stuff. But if I'm a ninja, or if I'm ninja minded, my reason for learning the Bujutsu stuff and getting really good at it is so I can dissect it and find the weaknesses, or I can take from it the power in it. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay ninjutsu on top of it, so that when I use it, nobody can see what I'm doing until it's too late, or they'll never see what I'm doing. Okay. This is what throws people off. But at the same time, because of the criteria and the reality that, think about today's world, think about the people that gravitate toward this kind of thing, right? They need to be all powerful. They need to be the shit. They need to be toughest guy on the block. They need. Right? They can't be invisible. They need for people to know that I'm the one that did that. I kicked his ass. Right? They need to walk around with the chest puffed out. They need to be the guy with the biggest muscles. They need to be, which is why so few, I mean, way back in the day, Hatsumi Sensei used to call it panning for gold, right? I'm going to be getting a whole bunch of mud and muck and whatnot in the pan, and I'm going to do this again and again and again and again. And if I'm lucky, I might find a nugget or a flake or whatever, 2 or 3 or whatever along the way. But I'm going to have to run a whole bunch through this process, right? It's more than interesting, right? There's a writing in Dr. Zaguri's book, Ninja, that I mentioned. He mentions correlations between Native American stuff, right, which I'm 5/8 Native American, Iroquois Nation, Cherokee, and there's Delaware in there. But and so there's things in there with not just stealth and whatnot, because there's something that that precedes all of these things, that is like, if there was going to be a number one ninja prerequisite, right, for this kind of mindset, it would be this one. But anyway, there's correlations between that, and then he quotes a couple of things from, like, there's an Arabian text that goes back to, because at the heart of all warfare, right, you've got deception and whatnot, because the more you can throw your enemy off so that they're processing things from the wrong perspective, the easier your win's going to be, right? If you're just throwing bodies at bodies, it's a fucking huge uphill climb, right? But if you can conserve your resources and you can have their bodies chasing the wrong thing, or what, you get a very different result, right? And so between this Arabian text and a lot of the ninja philosophy, right? And again, here's where it's going to throw a lot of people off, because people need to be that Budo guy. They need to be a modern samurai, right? It's all about honor. It's all about whatever. There's this saying, there's a statement that you need to hold your trickery above your bravery. Okay? Because you can be brave as hell, run into that bear's den, and I wish you well. Okay? But the reason why human beings are at the top of the food chain is not because we're the biggest, or we've got the biggest teeth, or we're the most ferocious, or whatever. We're cunning bastards. We're here because we've out-tricked all the other big animals, right? We've learned when to hide. We've learned not just when to attack, but where, right? We find the weak point. We find the crux, the kaname. Right? That way, a bunch of years ago, decade, more. When the hell was that? Somewhere around 2010, I think. Right, so decade and a half, whatever. The theme for the Bujinkan that year was this idea of kaname, right? The crux, the focal point, right, of a technique, of a strategy, or whatever, right? Every technique has a crux. It has a focal point, right? And it could be a weakness. It could be the way the thing operates, right? A way to think about a kaname, it's not just a weakness, right? It's a strength. But if I attack that thing and I break that strength, everything else falls apart, right? I'm from Pennsylvania here in the United States, for those of you who aren't from the States, right? And every state has its little slogan, right? Like New York is the Empire State, and Missouri is the Show Me State. Well, Pennsylvania is the Keystone State, right? Keystone, because out of the 13 colonies, we literally were right in the middle, and there nothing went over. Everything connected with it, right? And so, but a keystone, as a matter of fact, I've got my license renewal stuff, right? So that's keystone. See it? It's keystone. Okay. So a keystone is the piece right in the middle of an arch. And the way it's shaped, it's based on gravity and everything, right? So if the arch tries to collapse, it's all the pressure goes into this stone, and the stone will never fall out because of its shape, right? It has to be lifted out. But if it gets lifted out, the whole damn thing crumbles. Okay. So, well, that's a decent example of a kaname. Another really, really good one is like a hinge for a door, but not just the hinge. It's the bar. It's the bolt that goes down between the two pieces of hinge, right? That's the kaname. You break that or pull that out, the whole freaking door falls off, right? So instead of trying to bash down the door or, take the hinges off, you're only ever going to get one out, right? But still, things kind of get wedged and stuck and whatnot. Take that damn bar out, everything falls apart, right? So everything is quote unquote hinged, right? On that piece, right? So here's that number one skill for a ninja. It's observation. Okay. For my students, my Q level students leading to black belt, one of the questions that they have in their curriculum, and yes, my students have academic requirements, both Japanese vocabulary, history, those kind of things, right? Because I'm training people in the ninjutsu direction, not in the Budo direction, right? Does that mean we don't do hand-to-hand? Of course we do hand-to-hand, right? But there's a saying in the Togakude school, if the ninja has to draw a sword, he's already lost. Okay, girls, you too, right? But it has nothing to do with sword. It has to do, if you have to physically defend yourself, then you were caught, you were found out, right? Your deception and secrecy and all that kind of shit fell apart, right? Okay, and now you need to escape. You need to get the hell out of there, okay? So, where the hell was I going with that? The observation skills, right? So in the curriculum, one of the questions is, what was a ninja best known for? Right? Now this is an Iga no Mono directed question, right? But at that level, I want the students to know it was information gathering. Okay? But what's necessary for information gathering? You shut the hell up, you be still, and you pay attention, but you don't let anybody know you're paying attention. You're not even worth focusing on, right? If people are keeping an eye on you, then you are acting suspiciously, okay? So, people keep getting attracted to and keep seeing people dressing in these ninja outfits and stuff, right? Again, that whole outfit came from the Kabuki theater, because the best dressed ninja is just like the best dressed homicidal maniac. As a matter of fact, one year for a Halloween costume party, I went dressed in my regular clothes. And when I went in, everybody was all disappointed. Oh man, you should have dressed, and you keep with the theme. And I said, I am dressed. I came as a homicidal maniac. They look like everyone else. Right? Same thing as a ninja. Okay? If you can detect them, if they stand out, not a ninja. And if they are a ninja, a dead ninja. Okay? So, as far as the history of these two go, I think there's way too many crossovers to worry about it, in all honesty. Right? What I think is most important is to understand what the hell we're talking about, right? Which is why the first program I ever created, first online program I ever created, and some of my guys are still in the program, right? Some of the guys are still in, not that program, but they're still with me. I mean, my guy Carl from Australia, and there's a couple of folks that got involved in that program in, when was that? 2007, 2008, maybe even before that. I don't remember. I think. Anyway, they're still with me, right? Still studying. But that very first program that I brought out, Ninja no Hachimonn, the 8 gates of the ninja, right? Sometimes called the Ninja Hake, right? These were the primary skill sets. But the things that we talked about in there, why, right? Why yari? Why this? Why that? Whatever, right? So somebody's carrying a spear, but what they're missing, or it looks like a cheap freaking pole that you picked up because it's got holes in it and shit like that. Yeah, it's because it's a ladder or it's a measuring device or whatever. It's more than a spear. And it's a kama yari right? Yeah, I know, because we can hook legs and pull a knot. Yeah, well, if you get involved in a battle, but if you get involved in a battle, then you were found out and now you're shitting your pants and you need to get the hell out, right? No, it's a kamiyari because I can hook that hook up over a freaking wall and climb the pole of my spear and then pull it back up and get the hell out, right? For infiltration, if I have time to pull those pegs out of the bag and insert them and whatnot, and I have a ladder. But see, I don't need a ladder if it's just me. I need a ladder if there's a bunch of us and we're going to very quickly get a team up and over that wall, right? People need to get their mind past the thing. But here's, some will, some won't. So what, right? Just like we need guys who, work on the sewer and work on power lines and all that kind of stuff, right? They don't want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to be uber wealthy. They don't want to be, and that's fine, right? Because society needs that, right? We need Budo people, right? We need the obvious ones out. When I worked, bodyguard stuff, right? Bodyguard stuff is not like the shit you see in the movies, right? Bodyguard stuff is, I dissuade this guy through pain or influence or whatever, or drop his ass quickly and get the principal out of there. Because the longer this shit goes, the more in danger they are, right? If I'm duking it out with this person, you ever see like a Chuck Norris movie or whatever, right? And they're duking it out with the person trying to kill the person they're trying to save, right? I'm thinking of, what's his name? Sylvester Stallone. He played an assassin who had a change of heart because he was supposed to kill this woman. And who else was in that? Antonio Banderas, whatever, right? But they kept getting involved in shit and leaving the principal alone. Principal's a person who writes the check, by the way, right? Dead clients don't pay. So, but the longer I'm fucking around over here, the longer they're unprotected, right? No. It's not the way it works, right? And especially if we're in a big thing, right? Like the number of Secret Service people you see in the presidential motorcade and stuff like that is at best 1/10 or 10% of the ones that are actually out there, right? Some are in uniform, some are snipers on a rooftop. Sometimes they coordinate with local PD and whatnot, but it's just easier if we work with our team, right? You guys need to share information. Fuck you. I can't trust that you're trained. So we're going to handle it, right? Which is why all these departments they have their own things, because it's easier to train together than to do all this crossing of things. And then we have to hope that you guys kept up your level of training and you can translate the task, or I don't have to worry about you dropping the ball because you think it's stupid. Not you, but you get the idea, right? Because you think this is stupid, you want to do it your own way and whatever, right? So same idea, right? But again, observation, right? The number of times, some of you guys are personal students of mine, right? How many times have you heard me say, if you're going to binge watch YouTube, then binge watch CCTV, closed circuit TV attacks, or watch other martial arts stuff, but not because you're trying to learn the other martial art, but you're looking at their preferences, your information gathering, your whatever, right? So how many times have you heard me say that? Okay? How many times do you think people do that? Or how often do you think they do it? Okay? How often or how much do you think people listen to me when I say, stop trying to memorize shit because you're pigeonholing yourself, and develop the abilities to be a problem solver in the moment, right? I called my academy and well, now it's a bigger organization, Warrior Concepts, because concepts, principles and concepts, right? If I have these, warrior principles and concepts can look hundreds of different ways. Depends on the situation, those of you going through Mikyo training and the precursors to it, you're getting hints at this because it's context, not content. I mean, at a certain point, it is content because you have to learn certain things, but it's just, and I get it. It's easier to learn preset moves. It's easier to get finite answers about things, right? Because then ego feels like it knows. But, I mean, just translating the nin symbol. And I know we've done it once or twice, but there's multiple ways to translate that based on how you look at it and based on whether you're looking at it from an yin or yang perspective, right? There's a passive side to it. There's an aggressive side to it, right? So that's one way to look at the Iga and Koga, right? There's a passive side to it, right? Where what I'm presenting is weakness. What I'm presenting is an image that I'm off balance. I'm confused. I'm overwhelmed. I'm, again, weak. I'm incapable, right? But there's another way to look at it where you move and operate like a spinning blade, right? It's very different, right? But some people need for it to be fixed. But if it's fixed, then it's not needed to. They can see what you're doing. It's not needed to. It's easy to understand. Not needed to. Because needed to is all wrapped up in fraud, deception, secrecy, all those things, right? There's layers upon layers upon layers. And if Victor's on, I'm sure he's chuckling because he's the one that started the whole layers thing, right? There's too much to keep track of. It's like in the world of wealth and wealth protection, right? And people often talk about how much rich people need to give up the damn money. Man, you don't need all that money, right? Because do you know how many people you could feed with that? Yeah, once, and then now I'm as poor as everybody else. Not me, but anyway, right? But why do they have all that money? Well, I don't know. Let's think about all the different types of people that are trying to take it from them. Everything from the government with taxation to the bleeding hearts who have a cause that they want it for, right? To those who are looking for a free ride, and that person, I can just sue them. So now they don't just have to protect their money because people want it, but they need to pay lawyers and they need to pay accountants. They need to pay people to protect it and fucking run interference. So I don't know, how much money do they need to make sure that they're okay? Who wants it? All the people that bark about solving a problem, but somebody else is supposed to foot the bill. Anyway, I'll get off my pedestal, right? So this is like looking at ninjutsu, looking at the Bujinkan ninjutsu, right? Look is the same as looking at these arguments that people have over, I don't know, pick two religions that are at odds with each other, pick whatever, the socialism, capitalism, freaking thing or whatever, right? It's like looking at an iceberg. Everybody argues over the iceberg based on what they see. But what's important is all the shit that's beneath the surface, all the stuff that's being done that you can't see, and what's under the ocean, under that tip that's sticking out, is what? 10 times bigger? Right? That's the shit that sinks ships, not the thing you can see, right? So I'm sorry that this was not more of a who's using what weapons. I mean, if you want to break it down, right? Iga's using infiltration stuff and Koga's using firearms, guerrilla tactics, and fire. Maybe and probably, but not necessarily. Okay? Because if they were that freaking cut and dry, then we wouldn't be talking about ninjutsu. Okay? So anyway, I like I said at the very beginning, I was going to dance all over the friggin' place because it's not that easy. Okay? Let me make sure I didn't miss a question. I think I handled Jimmy's. And Chris sent the one in about, would you go to the family or whatever that. Okay, so let me get back to that one. So Chris, his question was, would you go to a family that was that specialized in whatever? Yeah, you could, but again, see, Chris, no offense, this question is based on the shit we see in movies, right? Like Shokasugi was hired by the corporation that was trying to assassinate somebody, and then Franco Nero's character steps in to stop, or whatever, right? Ninjas being hired by it. Okay. Based on what I can find, based on what others have found that I trust historically, there were already associations, right? There were already connections. Like I said, Tokugawa Ieyasu, the guy who was responsible for 100 years of enforced peace, was already connected with the Koga and Iga ninja, right? And so these families were already aligned, right? They're already, there's an analogy from my consulting corporate world, right? They're on retainer, right? So if they're needed for something, right? Well, they didn't have a one ringy dingy kind of thing. Dispatch a messenger. He goes. Well, that was another thing too. In the Iga and Koga thing, I talked about the leagues, right? That were responsible for like keeping the government out, or enforcing kind of their own legal structure within that region. No one passed through that area without permission. No one. Okay. If you entered that area and you weren't pre-authorized or whatever, they were either things that were created as distractions to get you to leave, or what happened to Yamamoto? Don't know. Left on his trip last month and haven't seen him since. Okay. Yeah, well, probably fertilizing some rice fields. So anyway, so it wasn't that easy, right? That somebody was just going to go and go, hey, we'd like to hire you guys. How would they know that the people they were talking to were ninja? Right? How would they know where to find these people? Okay? I liken this to when I did counterterrorism operations in the 80s. Okay. Because these religious zealots these days, they scared the shit out of me. We didn't have religious zealots back then. And if we did, they were few and far in between. What we had were mercenaries with a cause. Right? And here's what scares me today. Okay? And this is not a paranoia thing. This is not a hypervigilant thing or whatever. This is observation. Because that's what we do. Right? And then we look at evidence and we watch. We people watch. We society watch. We group watch. Okay? I'm going to jump to conclusion. And in today's session, this episode, I'm not going to be talking about the deep spiritual training and necessity. That's a part of ninjutsu as well. It's this huge tie-in, because one of the ways that one of the things you have to develop to observe without judgment, and to act without, I'm going to say without malice, right? Because I can defend my family, but I don't have to hate the guy that broke in. I do have to protect my family against that person, though, and my responses will be equal to his actions. Okay, I don't know you. What I do know is that you, or anybody, not you, right? This person or anybody that does not have my permission to pass into my territory. Do you hear the similarities, right? It's not going to go well. But this is not a hatred. This is not a malice thing. Right? The only way to do those things is to do the kind of training that reins in ego, so that you can operate from an ego-less position. Okay? This is not about taking sides, which is another problem within the normal Budo Bujutsu kind of thing, right? Honor says, I've taken sides because you have to take sides. For those of you on the audio only, I just made air quotes, because you have to take sides. And so, no. Samurai were, when I say that they were born into, right, there were way more displaced samurai than most people know about, because the storyline is, if you are now masterless, you have to commit seppuku. That's the honorable thing to do. Well, you know what? There's a bunch of those people who went, fuck that. I know exactly where I'm moving to, because there's a whole bunch of folks there that, right? And they probably already had some connections and whatever, right? Because their cousin's roommate Bob already moved, whatever, right? Bob's-san already moved there. But anyway, right? So just very, very different kind of thing. So, but how do you find them? Okay, no, there were already connections. There were already associations. Okay, did that mean that it never happened? No. There was a TV show a bunch of years ago, and I'm not mentioning this because I believe this fictional thing is true. No, the premise for the main character is what I'm pointing to, right? Because to me, this is probably closer to how it happened than something else, right? So there was a TV show, and I don't think it lasted for more than, like, I don't know, a season or two. It was called Stingray, and this guy was very, very mysterious. He drove a '65 Stingray, whatever, right? Not that I wasn't all jazzed about the car, but the kind of mystery about him was, like, he was probably a spy or a government agent, whatever. Decided to right, atone for sins and whatnot, so he would work for people for free. But he had it was kind of like the Equalizer kind of thing, right? He had an ad out or whatever, right? And so, or I think past clients ended up, like, somehow referring him, but people would look for him, and he would bump into them, strike up a conversation, whatever, and then after he vetted them, that, you know, they weren't intent on hurting him or anything like that, he would check into things a little bit, and then he would make himself known. His name was always different, but he would make himself known as I'm the guy you're looking for to help you. I can help you, right? And so if I were a ninja operating in ancient Japan, and I have to worry about protecting not just me, but an entire village or villages or an entire league of families. You don't just come knocking on my fucking door. That would be stupid. Right? So again, I understand where the questions come from. It's just not that simple. Okay? And so part of this idea of being a ninja or being the shinobi no mono is it's more about personality traits. It's more about character traits. It's more about the deception, the secrecy, the right. I mean, people come into my dojo, they see Budo Taijutsu, big time. Right? Um, does that mean we don't have a ninja group? Nope. Okay. But anyway, so let me see if anything else popped up here. Now would be the time to ask any questions or have any comments or whatever if you want or have them. Let's see. Oh, Dave. Wow. All right. Given it was an hour ago, drink Koga Cola. Wow. Let's see. Richard Pacheco. Reiki started that. Create your own lineage as well. Oh, yeah. Well, the irony on, and this is something that is really, really cool, right? In today's world, and I think Noguchi Sensei is writing something, or I just saw something, right? I mean, maybe it's already happened. I think I saw it on Sean Askew's Facebook page. Either Sean or Noguchi Sensei made reference to something that was written 1830s, give or take, right? About a Tagagi Yoshin ninjutsu connection, that there are aspects in Tagagi Yoshin that are ninjutsu or ninjutsu-like. And not only I think that was pretty interesting, because that's the latest one that I found, but there's connections with the Kukishinden Ryu, right? Because that was named something different way back in the day, right? Because there's a pirate connection there, and some other kind of, so they have their own unique fight tactics. The Naganawa, right? That hook with the rope and whatnot that you often see if you look in Ninjutsu History and Tradition. It's there, and it's in a couple of other books. That's actually a Kukishinden thing, right? Well, how'd that end in a book on Togakure Ryu Ninjutsu? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyway, but when I was talking about earlier with these immigrants that came in from China during the fall of the Tang Dynasty, a lot of them settled into certain regions, right? And one of those regions is Kumano. And Richard just reminded me of this thing here because he mentioned Reiki. Mount Kumano is, I think, southwest of not Kyoto, of Kyoto. Right? I haven't made it there yet, but if you have any of Hatsumi Sensei's Quest videos, I highly recommend, if you can't read Japanese, have them translated. I mean, it's easy. You can do it online now for practically nothing, right? There's a reference to the Gyoko school, right? That its home base was Mount Kumano. Mount Kumano is also the seat of one of the centers for the Omatsu Tatara, right? The secret teachings that had to do with health and medicine, healing, all that kind of stuff. But it was also the home of the founder of the Gyoko school, but he was tied in with something else. He was he was a ninja. So there's all this freaking backhanded stuff, right? That, you know, Gyoko Ryu is here. There was a lot of theories that me and my historian friends had a long time ago coming up through the art. The more we looked into history, the more we're like, holy shit, all these schools, because there's a bunch of high-ranking people in the Bujinkan today that's like, not everything is ninjutsu, right? We've got these samurai schools, and we've got like only 3 schools are ninja schools, and maybe Hatsumi Sensei didn't need to teach all 3 ninja schools because you got this one, but all of them, like now that I have this thing wrapped in my head with Tagagi Yoshin, and it's not Tagagi Yoshin, there's another branch. I can't remember the middle part of it, but it's another Tagagi branch that has this ninjutsu connection. But now that I have that one, now I'm like, holy shit. Like almost all these samurai schools that we know of as samurai schools, like the front door is samurai facing like warriorship, walk a certain way, carry yourself a certain way and all that. Meanwhile, out the back door, we got ninja operations going on. See, that kind of stuff intrigues me, right? Are you going to find it written exactly that way? Nope. Because if you did, it wouldn't be ninjutsu, right? So, but the thing that I was going to mention there with the Reiki thing, right? One of the things that is tied in with Kumano, Mount Kumano, and because Kyoto, that's the seat of Japanese Mikyo, right? The Shingon school was set up there by Kukai. The very first Shingon temple is really close to the train station. So when we take our little, it's actually a 2-day trip down to Kyoto to do some historical research, I take people to Nijo Castle, which has a nightingale floor that was invented by Hattori Hanzo. See, all this ninja connection, right? I take people over to Toji Temple, which is the first Shingon temple that was set up by Kukai when he came back from China, right? And then above Kyoto is Hiezan, right? Actually, the seat for Shingon is miles away. We have to take a bullet train, local train, and whatnot to get to the base of Koyasan to go up to the seat of Shingon. But above Kyoto is Hiezan, which is the seat of Tendai, which is not all Mikyo, but a branch of Tendai is Mikyo that I was initiated into. So there's all this shit, right? It's all this stuff is there, right? Anyway, so it's just I'm gonna let that one trail off, but the Kumano thing, right? That is where the founder of Reiki supposedly took a sabbatical, right? Went up there, went to a temple, and meditated, right? And had this epiphany, right? That became Reiki. I'm going to tie this back in here with something else here in a minute. But this temple is one of the temples that supposedly holds the scrolls of the Amatsu Tatada, all this ancient, these ancient scrolls and teachings and whatnot for, again, health and medicine and whatnot. So I'm not saying that he didn't have an epiphany, but it is possible that he was at this temple and reading stuff in the library and ta-da, had an epiphany because he came across this stuff. And here's this interesting tie-in. In the very highest levels of Reiki, there are these hand positions, right, that are also, some people say, well, my Miko teacher, Reverend Jikai, said that the Kuji is a subset of the Mikyo mudra and all that kind of stuff, right? And it depends on which books you have. And I mean, old traditional books, right? They can all be translated that way, but in a lot of the old books, there's a cross between Shinto, Taoism, Nikkyo, because you're not using all Nikkyo deities. You can do substitution, and it all works out. But I find it interesting that in the highest levels of Reiki, the 9 Kuji seals are there. Interesting, huh? So that's a hell of an epiphany. It's a hell of a coincidence as far as epiphany goes, or the same aliens visited at the same time. But anyway, Jared, I'm sorry that this was not a cut and dry, here's the wall, these guys did this, these guys did this. I mean, before that, I can't remember the name of the law or the era where it happened, where they divided the country right through this one region, and then you ended up with the Shiga and the Mie provinces, and then now you've got the Iga guys over here and the Koga guys over here, when originally it was just one big ass region, right? Same mountain range, that kind of thing. So anyway, questions, comments. Dun, 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 dun. Dave, you're retarded. Sorry, I mean that in the most loving way. All right, questions, comments, complaints. Sorry, I'm again my own producer and back end guy here. I don't see anything else. I don't know if I'm missing anything from the other side of things. Jared says it's okay. It's still a history lesson. Cool. All right. All right. So you see some of you guys are over on YouTube. Some are on Facebook. So I'm assuming that we are simulcasting where we're supposed to be. So anyway, all right. So let's see. It's still up in the air. Monday the 22nd. Even if my wife and I, we tend, when we're going on vacation, the ship sails on the 23rd, which is Tuesday. So for those of you who are in the Ninpo Masterclass program, guys at the dojo, we have a brand new computer system and everything set up to manage all the class video and all that. We just inaugurated it tonight during the Q&A. People saw me moving cameras around and shit like that. Anyway, so that stuff will still be running. Obviously, there won't be Whiteboard Wednesdays. I'll try to get some legacy ones loaded up so that they'll run at the normal time, so that we can keep a consistency kind of thing going. But I'm going to be out in the middle of the ocean, and the internet is not dependable. And even if I were to break through and do things in a way that I could, the free stuff for everybody is already not free to me. I'm not paying that much to do a class. So sorry. Anyway, but next Monday, 22nd, is up in the air at the moment. I'll let everybody know as soon as my plans are shorted down. If my wife and I can get to a hotel and I can be set up in time, and we decide to go that route, because normally when we do things, we go into town a day early so that we run less of a risk of missing the boat, because it's too fucking expensive. I'll just do KUDEN from there. If not, then we're gonna end up missing that one. I'm gonna try to set it up to where we're only missing one, which would be on the 29th. There won't be one then at all, but there will be, for those of you in the Realm of the Tactical Warrior program, Mod 2, Shinobi Kai, you guys know who you are. The Monday classes will run virtually from the school on time, no hitch. And then the Tuesday and Friday classes for Shinobi Kai and the Platinum Inner Circle group and the Ninpo Masterclass folks, they'll run as normal. So there shouldn't be that much of a hiccup. It would just be a KUDEN or two and a whiteboard Wednesday. There won't be one on the 24th or the 31st, other than maybe a pre-recorded thing that'll get preloaded. All right, but otherwise, that's it. That's all I got. We have some seminars and whatnot in the works. When I get back, we'll be publishing the spring and fall camp dates, and then some other seminars and whatnot. This year, we're going to be getting back on track with doing everything from wilderness survival to a bunch of other stuff. So both live, and I have a couple of upcoming programs that I'll be doing for folks that have been going through the relaunch of the first 7 steps on the path, people that want to do meet Gil, that kind of thing. There are 2 programs that are going to get scheduled that will lead directly into that kind of thing. So and then after that, we're going to be firing things up for I don't want to call them apprenticeships, but that kind of thing where folks that want to dive in head first on that side. I will also be doing, and I'm looking for hosts to do seminars in their area, so that we get this stuff out more and get this whole COVID shit and delays and all that kind of stuff behind us. But anyway, lots of stuff. So if you have any questions, any topic request, one of my students, Chris Major, sent in something that'll probably be for one of the coaching calls, but who knows? It could turn into a Whiteboard Wednesday kind of thing. It has to do with footwork and whatnot. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to work that, or which way I'm going to do it yet. It'll definitely be for one of the upcoming coaching calls for those of you in my Platinum Inner Circle program that are students that way. But it may end up as a Whiteboard Wednesday kind of thing. I don't think. Let me see. Do I have a topic for? I don't have a topic for the next episode of KUDEN, so nothing to. Oh yeah, I do. I take that back. Yeah, next episode is going to be. I've been using this phrase a lot lately. Training content versus context. Right. We're going to look at perspective and how it relates to your training, and take a look at the difference between what I call 2x progress, right, which is next step, and 10x or 100x, where you just make this freaking quantum leap forward on things without cheating the system or ignoring important pieces, because the rank and the belt's more important than anything else. All right, so let's see. Chris said thank you. You're welcome. I think that's it. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I will talk to everybody again next time. So I'll let everybody know. I'll send out an email and post online as soon as I know about Monday the 22nd. Otherwise, either way, well, not otherwise, either way, I will talk to everybody again next time. Hopefully this was valuable. If you have any follow-up questions, warriorc@concepts-online.com. And also, if you go to onlineninjaacademy.com, KUDEN podcast, right, you can get on the subscriber list, and that way you're not waiting for social posts to pop up. You get emails leading up to it, letting you know what the topic is, reminders, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's it. All right, I'll talk to you again soon. Be safe. Train hard.
Get more of KUDEN Radio, subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.